The last update that I posted, I explained that my dad was not doing very well and that the hospice nurses estimated that he had 24 to 48 hours left. It's been a couple of weeks since then, so I wanted to provide an update. We could tell that my dad was really declining. He had stopped swallowing his food. That was the primary thing. And he was kind of oscillating between being clammy and seeming slightly feverish to not seeming feverish, which made us suspect that he might be developing another UTI. He has just recovered from two UTIs, and he was no longer very interested in food, which, if you knew my dad, that was like a major, major change because even throughout the course of his disease, my dad would clear every crumb, every morsel of food from every plate that was ever offered to him. So the significance of him no longer wanting to eat was very obvious to us. Sunday was Mother's Day. So my mom and my sister and I all gathered in my dad's room that day. We spent the day together with him. And then my mom stayed that night, Sunday night. Come morning, my dad was still with us, and I returned to the nursing home. My sister returned as well, and we spent the day there again. Being that it is May, we were in the throes of end of school stuff. My boys are in middle school, and each of them had an awards ceremony, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. So on Monday afternoon, I left to go attend my son's 8th grade awards ceremony. And my mom said, don't come back. You've been here all day for 2 days. We'll keep you posted. So after the awards ceremony, I came home and I just felt uncomfortable not being there. I felt like his hours were numbered and I wanted to go back. So I talked to my family about it and I hopped in the car and drove back. The nursing home's about an hour away from the house. I got back about 8 o'clock and the kind staff at the nursing home brought another chair into the room and another pillow and blanket. And we all kind of hunkered down for the night. My mom hadn't slept very well. Of course, the night before, sleeping in a recliner, looking over and monitoring my dad. So she was the first one to fall asleep, and my sister followed. I had a lot of trouble falling asleep. I was listening to my dad's breathing, and just if you've ever witnessed those moments, it will rise and then fall. So his breathing would get heavier. I don't want to say gasping because it didn't sound like gasping or struggling, but almost like the way that waves roll in and out in the ocean and they go from loud to being quiet. That's what his breathing was doing. And of course, every time it would go quiet, I was listening for whether or not it was going to return. Finally, I drifted off to sleep, and throughout the night, nurses would enter and check him out. We had been swabbing his mouth and we had been, rubbing his hands and arms and legs and comforting him and letting him know that it was okay. And at about 3:20, my mom woke up and I was never very deeply asleep. So I heard her stand up and she walked over to him to check on him, which we were all doing very regularly. And she looked at me and said, I think he's gone. And she scurried out of the room and the nurses returned and he, in fact, was gone. And the last nurse visit was somewhere in the 2:20 or so time period. So somewhere between 2:20 and 3:20 is when he left the room. And it was a really surreal experience for me. I'm so glad that I decided to go back and I was able to be there. I'm so grateful for the help and support that we received that night. The whole nursing home was really rallied around us, and it was really special to visit the people that had been helping my dad at night because we were there so often during the day. We knew all of the people that helped during the day, but we hadn't met this night crew, and they each had their own special bonds with him. So it was really special to see them and to meet them and to know that. We called hospice, who had been there that day and was aware of the situation. And the nurse ended up coming back out by around 4 or so. And the next thing to do was faxing the paperwork for my dad's brain donation. My dad opted to donate his brain for Alzheimer's research, and that involved faxing a form and arranging his transportation from the rural place that he was at to Houston in the medical center. The research facility had been calling my mom regularly to inquire about what we were expecting to happen. But unfortunately, on the actual morning that this happened, the person who was working was not the same one who's been calling regularly. It was someone new who had never done this before and didn't know what to do or how to send the appropriate instructions. But the hospice nurse who was with us was so amazing. She assured us that she would help us get it all figured out, and she did. That morning, we left the nursing home around 6:30, and you're not going to believe this, but I got pulled over within like a half mile of the nursing home. I haven't been pulled over by a cop in who knows how long. I mean, it's been a long time. And I was at a stoplight and I saw his lights go on, and I'm like, surely that's not for me. I'm like looking around going, what in the world is happening? But apparently there's a curb right outside of the nursing home's little area where the speed limit was 35 and I was going over that. So I got pulled over. Thankfully, he gave me a warning. I came home and it was just a really surreal day. Brant and I went and spent the next day over at my mom's house after picking up the recliner that we'd had at the nursing home and getting a chance to hug some of the people there. So it's now Monday, May 25th, Memorial Day, and it's summer. And my dad's ceremony is going to be on Saturday, May 30th, this coming Saturday. So really looking forward to a chance to send him off in good style. And as painful and sad as the whole experience has been, I'm so glad that my dad is now free. I'm also so glad that the end for him was only February through early May. I know that a lot of other people spend a lot longer in that sort of state that he was in at the end. And I'm so grateful that for him, it was the 3 or so month period and no longer than that. I'm so grateful for the help and support of all of the people who rallied around us, both those at the nursing home and with hospice, the sitters that helped in the final months. But also, I'm really grateful for all the people in my parents' hometown that have rallied around my mom during this time. And I'm grateful that both my sister and I were able to be there on that final night. There's a lot that I feel really grateful for. I've spent the past couple of weeks digging into photos and memories of my dad, and it's been really special. And even though we miss him so much, he was no longer the person who I see in the photographs, and he's no longer the person that I remember from the stories. Something about his departure reframed things and allowed me to think of him not as the ailing 69-year-old Alzheimer's patient that he was at the time of his death, but instead the 35 or 40-year-old silly, sweet, dutiful, civic-minded, wholesome person that he was. And it's really pleasant to spend time with those memories after so long spent in the tragedy of the end, right? With all of this going on, I would also add that I've recently been immersed in very hopeful news about Alzheimer's treatments. And as much as it hurts that my dad's condition struck just before some of these therapies became available, it also really helps me as someone who carries the same genetic mutation that my dad did to know that this might not be my experience at all. We're all going to go someday, right? But I have a lot of hope that the treatments that are currently available, when paired with early administration, like in studies like the one I'm involved in, might mean that Alzheimer's is actually prevented entirely. And I'm really excited about that. So it's been a rough start to the year. It's May 25th and 2026 has just been a blur with my dad having that seizure in early February leading up until now. But I'm grateful for where we are now. I'll let you know how the ceremony goes next weekend, how we see him off, and what happens from here. Thank you for following along with my journey.